The salty breeze off the Turtle Bay always smelled the same to Liam Dagda, brine and kelp, and the faint copper tang of old shipwrecks. But that morning there was something sour threaded through it. Whispers. He stood on the headland above Turtle Bay, cloak snapping around his boots, watching the waves gnaw at the black teeth of rock. On most days, this view calmed him. Turtle Bay curved like a crescent moon. The Dagda estate nestled in the green hills behind him, its white stone towers catching the pale Flagler Coast sun. Today, the sea looked like it was plotting. Below, gulls wheeled and screamed. Farther out, sails dotted the horizon, traders running between Flag Harbor and Mer Coast, Kolap ships marked by their green pennants, Paterom vessels with their clean white banners, and a few anonymous hulls that flew no colors at all. From behind him, boots crunched on gravel. "You've been up here since dawn," a voice said, trying to stare the tide into behaving. Liam didn't turn at once. He knew the voice, Karis, his younger cousin, all sharp tongue and sharper eyes. "Tides behave," Liam said. "It's people that don't." Karis came to stand beside him, shoving his hands into his belt. The bay wind toyed with his dark hair. "Is this about the rumors? Or are you brooding for fun today?" "Rumors don't reach Turtle Bay without reason." Liam nodded at a pair of distant ships angling south, running fast under full sail. "Those hulls are riding light, no cargo in their bellies. They're not trading, they're carrying messages." "Messages from Mer," Karis said, sobering. "About the Kolaps and Pateroms?" Everyone on Flagler Coast had heard something by now. Tavern talk, dockside curses, prayer murmurs in storm shrines. Old rivalry between the Kolap family of Mer Coast and the Pateroms of Flag Harbor was flaring again, like a half-smothered fire-tasting air. "Word from our informant says Kolap tongues are wagging loud," Karis went on, accusing the Pateroms of hoarding grain, gold, Nexu crystals even, whole vaults sealed while Mer's dockworkers' children go hungry. Liam's fingers tightened on the hilt of the dagger at his belt. He could almost hear the voices on the docks, rough and low, spitting the Paterom name like a curse. He'd been there enough times, as a boy, running errands for his father, sneaking away to listen to sailors talk about storms and megalodons and western tropics. He knew the way injustice soaked into a port city. It made the air taste bitter. "They have the proof?" Liam asked. "Proof?" Karis snorted. "No parchment, no seals, just ships counted in the night and wagons rolling in secret." He shrugged. "But the Kolaps call themselves stewards of the working class, and the working class believes them. That's almost better than proof." Liam finally tore his gaze from the water and looked inland. Turtle Bay's vineyards rolled away in neat rows. Farther up the hill, the Dagda manor rose steady and sure, its banners deep blue charged with the silver Dagda knot, hanging limp in the heavy air. The Dagdas were arbiters of Flagler Coast, not kings, not council, but something older and stranger, a house tasked by the Nexu Council to weigh disputes between powerful families, to keep noble blood from drowning the realm in its own folly. When the Kolaps and Pateroms snarled, it was the Dagdas who were supposed to step between and make them unclench their teeth. Liam dug his heels into the dirt. "Father won't be able to ignore this much longer." Karis glanced up toward the manor. "He won't ignore it. He'll weigh it. That's what Colt Dagda does. He sits in his hall and lets numbers and testimonies stack on either side like stones until the scale tips." "Stones don't bleed," Liam muttered. Karis's sidelong look softened. "You've always cared too much." "Someone has to." Liam turned back to the sea. "If the rumors are true, if the Pateroms are starving their own people so their vaults gleam, the Treaty of Stalemate exists so this doesn't happen. The treaty, signed 5 years after the Nexu Council's founding, in the wake of the Etrus Empire's fall. It bound the great coastal houses of Flagler Coast, Kolap, Paterom, Dagda, and a dozen lesser banners to peace under pain of council wrath. No open war, no private armies on city streets. Disputes came to Turtle Bay or to the council's stone halls on Midgardum. On parchment, it was perfect. In the hearts of men, it was kindling, waiting for a spark. The wind shifted, carrying a distant rumble. Thunder, though no storm cloud, marked the pale sky. Karis frowned. "Hear that?" "Not thunder," Liam said quietly. "Nexu." Far out, beyond the headland, the water shivered. For a heartbeat, Liam saw a flare of pale blue light beneath the waves, like lightning trapped in glass. A trader vessel's sails snapped full. The ship lurched forward with unnatural speed, trailing foam. An elemental water user channeling Nexu through the hull, enhancing speed, common enough for rich merchants. Everyone's tightening their grip, Liam murmured. On ships, on grain, on power. And you're worried it'll slip, Karis said. Liam didn't answer. But on mornings like this, with the air thick and the sea restless, the coals stirred. A bell tolled, faint from the manor. Karis straightened. Gatehouse bell. We visitors. Kolap emissary. Liam said it without thinking. The words tasted right. Karis squinted at him. You sure you're not secretly a seer now? No, just paying attention. Liam started up the path. Come on. Father will want us present. As chairs, maybe, Karis grumbled, hurrying to keep pace. You know he hates when you speak out of turn. I'm the heir, Liam said. Sooner or later, my turn is all there is. He didn't say the other thought clawing at him, the one shaped like a girl's laugh and a harbor city's gleam. Niamh Paterom. Betrothed to him since last spring, when Flag Harbor's banners had flown bright, and the Pateroms had smiled like they feared nothing on earth. Their joining was supposed to bind three powers together: Dagda neutrality, Paterom wealth, and the Turtle Bay's strategic strength. Now that alliance was a fuse leading straight into a powder keg. As he mounted the last rise, the Dagda manor spread before him, arched windows, stone galleries, a courtyard, where orange trees shivered in the sea wind. At the open gates, a ship's standard snapped, Kolap blue, marked with the white crest of a breaking wave. Liam's jaw set. The whispers of Coast had finally reached Turtle Bay, and whatever came next, he could feel it in his bones. The quiet days of watching the tide were over. The Kolap emissary looked like he'd been carved from driftwood and left too long in the sun. He stood below the Dagda tapestry of judgment, a tree made from knots embroidered in silver on a blue banner, his weather-cracked hands clenched around his hat, his salt-streaked hair tied back with pragmatic rope. Travel dust dulled his boots. His long coat was Kolap green, but the hem had been mended too many times to count. This was no pampered courtier. This was a man who knew the weight of nets and ledgers and empty bellies. Liam stood along the right-hand wall of the hall beside Karis and two of their cousins, formal in Dagda blue. At the far end, upon the stone dais, Colt Dagda sat in the high seat, Liam's father, Lord Arbiter of Flagler Coast. Colt's presence filled the room without effort. Broad-shouldered, dark-haired, gone iron at the temples, his face seamed with lines carved by years of weighing other men's wars. His Nexu was quiet, his chakras masked, the way sages and old arbitrators learned to be when all eyes were on them. He listened. That was his power. The emissary had been speaking for some time. He had laid out grain tallies and ship manifests, names of families in Myrrh who had gone from comfortable to desperate in a single bad season. He had spoken of wagons that rolled toward Flag Harbor under cover of darkness, of Paterom warehouses guarded by mercenaries instead of the city watch. Now his voice shook with fury barely held in check. It's not just numbers, my lord, he said. It's children, dockworkers' children with bellies swollen from hunger. Fishermen forced to sell their catch at Paterom prices or not at all. And you are certain the Pateroms hoard beyond what's needful for lean years? Colt asked. His tone was mild, his eyes were knots. Certain enough to ask that the Dagdas break the treaty and intervene? The treaty of stalemate was meant to protect the people, the emissary said. What good is a shield that allows them to starve behind it? He took a shuddering breath. Lord Kolap believes the Pateroms keep enough stores in their vaults to feed all three cities of Coast, Flag Harbor, and Turtle Bay through 3 winters. They shut the granaries while our people scrape mold from the last loaves. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Liam's teeth ground together. The image of hungry children on Mare's rain-slick docks dug into him like hooks. Colt's gaze flicked to a table where records lay. Scribes stood ready to fetch any text he asked for, past rulings, council decrees. Lord Kolap has means to prove this? Colt asked. Witnesses prepared to swear under court binding? Some, the emissary said. Counts, observations, the word of men who have unloaded Paterom ships. Not enough to breach a treaty endorsed by the Nexu Council. Colt's fingers tapped once on the arm of his chair. We deal in more than suggestion here. At Liam's side, Karis shifted. He's stalling, he breathed, trying to find a way to say no without sounding like a Paterom dog. Liam shot him a warning look, but his own chest burned with the same thought. The emissary's knuckles whitened around his hat. My lord, with respect, while we prepare witness lists, the Kolap docks fill with widows. With respect, we didn't come here for parchment. We came here for justice. Colt regarded him for a long, heavy moment. Justice, he said slowly, is not swayed by anger, Master Kolap. The emissary flinched at the form of address. I'm no master, my lord. I am only Ryan, dock foreman, his chin lifted, and Nexu or no, the people of Mer will not wait forever. Liam could hold his tongue no longer. Father! Colt's gaze flicked to him, sharp as a knife. The whole hall seemed to hold its breath. Liam, he said, you will remain silent until asked. Heat flooded Liam's face. Fury rose on a wave of humiliation, but he forced his hands to remain at his sides. Rian Kolap saw the exchange. Desperation cracked his caution. Let him speak, my lord. He is to wed Niamh Paterom, is he not? He will have more right to judge this than any of us. The temperature in the room dropped. Dagda guard shifted. Karis inhaled through his teeth. Liam felt every gaze lock onto him, felt the invisible web of politics tighten. His father's eyes hardened. My son's betrothal is not for public dissection. But it is relevant, Rian insisted. If the Pateroms treat their own city so... That is enough. Colt rose from his chair in a single smooth motion. Power stirred around him, like air before a storm. The hall fell utterly silent. You came here under the Dagda banner, Rian, messenger of House Kolap. You will not question my household under my own roof. Rian's shoulders sagged. For a heartbeat, Liam thought the man might collapse. But he straightened, jaw clenched. At least tell me this, my lord, he said, voice rough. Will the Dagdas stand with the people of Mer against the Pateroms hoarding? The hall hung on the answer. Every Dagda bloodline retainer, every servant, even the scribes with ink, darkened fingers, every soul in the chamber leaned forward without moving. Colt Dagda looked down at the emissary, the man who had carried his people's fear on his back across storm-tossed water. Then he lifted his goblet, took a slow sip, and set it down. No interference, he said. 2 words, nothing more, but they fell like an axe. Rian flinched as though struck. For a heartbeat, Liam thought he might shout, curse, throw his hat to the floor. Instead, the dock foreman bowed. Not in respect, never that, but in exhausted defeat. Then the blood that follows, he said softly, will not be on our hands alone. He turned and walked from the hall without waiting to be dismissed. The great doors closed behind him with a boom that echoed in Liam's bones. Silence clung for a few heartbeats more. Then Colt sat again. This audience is concluded. The hell it is, Liam blurted. The word bounced off stone and banners. Karis hissed. Someone actually dropped a quill. Colt's head turned very slowly. Liam. You heard him, Liam said, stepping away from the wall into the open center of the hall. You saw him. That man carried half a city in his eyes. Are we really going to pretend we didn't? We are not pretending anything, Colt said. We are maintaining balance. By letting the Pateroms starve Mer? We do not know that they are. Colt's voice remained infuriatingly calm. We have hearsay and suspicion. The Treaty of Stalemate holds this coast together. If the Dagdas break it lightly, every house will take that as license to let their Nexu run wild. You remember what happened before the council, boy? You've read the histories. Liam's hands curled into fists. History doesn't help a child whose belly aches now. History tells us how many more children will die if we let this realm slide back into war, Colt said. Do you think Mer Coast will be the only city to suffer? Liam's anger pulsed hot, his fists tightening. Fire wanted out. He wrestled it down. Losing control in the judgment hall would prove every fear his father had. You have Nexu, Liam said tightly. You have men. You have the council at our backs. We could investigate. Ask the Pateroms, open their vaults. At least look. Prove the Pateroms innocent before the Kolaps try to react. Under whose authority? Colt asked. The Dagdas are arbiters, not invaders. If we march on Flag Harbor without council sanction, we become exactly what we're meant to prevent. That's convenient, Liam snapped. To do nothing and call it duty. A shocked murmur rolled along the wall. Colt froze. For a long moment, father and son stared at one another. Liam saw a flicker then, something like hurt beneath the steel. It almost made him step back. Almost. At last, Colt exhaled. You will come to my study at dusk, he said quietly. Alone. Liam swallowed. That tone was worse than any shouted rebuke. Yes, my lord, he said. The formal words tasted like ash. He bowed, because that was what was expected, and turned on his heel. The hall rose around him like a cliff face as he walked between carved pillars and tapestried walls toward the sunlight of the courtyard. Karis caught up with him, under the orange trees. You just had to do that. He's wrong, Liam said. Maybe, but he's still your father, and the Lord Arbiter. Karis scrubbed a hand over his face. You know the council gave him that title for a reason. The last thing they want is a Dagda heir who throws fire on oil. Liam looked toward the distant glint of the sea. Somewhere beyond that line, Mer Coast seethed. Somewhere along Flagler Coast, Paterom wagons rolled under cover of darkness. And in Flag Harbor, Niamh Paterom waited, unaware that the city she loved sat on the fault line of two families' greed. I won't stand aside, he said under his breath. Not if things are as bad as Rian says. However, I believe it's the Kolap's at fault. Karis sighed. Then you'd best hope you're wrong, cousin. Liam prayed he was. But deep in his bones, he knew he wasn't. Evenings in Turtle Bay usually smelled of crushed grapes and salt. That night, Liam smelled only ink and old paper. Colt's study was lined with shelves crammed full of scrolls, bound journals, cracked leather tomes. A map of Flagler Coast dominated the far wall, pinned with colored glass markers, blue for Dagda holdings, green for Kolap, white for Paterom, and a scattering of lesser colors for the smaller houses. Candles burned low in iron sconces, throwing flickering light across his father's face. Colt sat behind a broad oak desk, fingers steepled. He did not ask Liam to sit. So, he said quietly, you believe I am a coward. Liam winced. I never said. Conveniently, there were 100 witnesses in the hall. Colt's gaze pinned him like a specimen. Do you think I would let my own fear decide the fate of a city? Liam swallowed. No, father, I know you weigh. You always do. But sometimes weighing too long is its own form of failure. Colt's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened. Explain, Liam pulled in a breath. If the Pateroms are innocent of hoarding, if Mer's children are starving, what happens while we chase written proof? What if it is actually the Kolap's hoarding? Winter comes early. A storm wrecks a fishing fleet. Disease runs through the poorer wards. How many die before we can present neat columns of ink to the council? You assume the worst possible chain of events, Colt said. That's the job, Liam snapped, then flushed. Ours, he amended, as Dagdas. We're supposed to see where greed and anger lead and stop it before the streets run red. You think I don't see it? Colt gestured at the map. For 20 years, I've kept those colored markers from crashing together. Kolaps and Pateroms have circled each other like sharks since before you were born. The Treaty of Stalemate was not signed in a moment of goodwill. It was hammered out because everyone was tired of burying their sons. Liam's temper faltered. I know, but you love a girl from Flag Harbor, Colt said. And that love colors what you see. Liam's mouth went dry. That's not. I haven't even. Colt waved a hand. You think I don't remember what it is to be young? To have your chest crack open every time you see a particular face? His gaze softened a fraction. I agreed to your betrothal for more than politics, Liam. I saw how Niamh steadied you. Memories pricked like thorns. Niamh laughing on the Flag Harbor seawall, her copper hair blown back by the harbor wind, the way she watched the fishermen mending nets, attention sharp, questions on her tongue. She cared about her city the way he cared about his coast. She would not hoard food, Liam said quietly. She would not allow it. Niamh Paterom is not Flag Harbor, Colt said. Her father is, her uncles. They're stewards in their books. You think the Kolaps separate them in their quest for power? They will raise the whole harbor if they move at all. Liam clenched his teeth. Then so much the more reason for us to stand between. Colt was silent for a time. The only sounds were candle, crackle, and the soft susurration of the sea below, filtered through shuttered windows. At last, Colt rose. He crossed to the map, studying the colored markers as though they might arrange themselves into sense. The Dagdas hold Turtle Bay, he said. We have sworn to be the still point between tides. If we side with Kolap on suspicion alone, we break the trust the Pateroms placed in us when they offered Niamh's hand. If we side with the Pateroms, then the Kolaps will state that we played favorites. So we do nothing? Liam heard the wildness in his own voice. Wait and see which family slaughters the other first. We wait, Colt corrected, and we watch. Our agents in Flag Harbor and Coast send reports daily. If I see proof that the treaty has already been broken, that Paterom Nexu users have been deployed against their own populace, or that Kolap mercenaries gather for more than a show of force, I will act." He met Liam's gaze. "But until then we hold." Liam stared at him. The fire inside him clawed at his ribs. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "the act of waiting is its own breach." Colt's jaw tightened. "You are not the arbiter yet." "No," Liam said. "Just the one who'll have to live with what our name means when you're gone." Silence hit like a fist. For a heartbeat, Liam thought he'd pushed too far, that his father might unleash his Nexu right there. Instead, Colt closed his eyes briefly. "You'll ride to Flag Harbor in 3 days," he said. Liam blinked. "What?" "Your betrothal oath needs sealing before the spring equinox." Colt returned to his desk, sorting through a stack of letters. "You will speak with Niamh. You will see the city with your own eyes. If you find proof that she is complicit in harm to her people, we will revisit this discussion." Liam's mind stuttered. "You're sending me into the heart of this." "You want to see?" Colt asked, not unkindly. "Then see. But you will go as a Dagda envoy, not a vigilante with fire in his hands. You will not act without orders. Do you understand me, Liam?" It was more than he'd expected, less than he wanted. "I understand," he said. He left the study with his thoughts buzzing like angry wasps. Karis met him in the corridor, eyebrows lifted. "Well?" "We're going to Flag Harbor," Liam said. Karis's grin flashed. "Archons, save us, you really did it." They never made it. 3 days later, as Turtle Bay's stables readied horses and servants loaded supply wagons, a storm rolled in off the coast like a living thing. Dark clouds piled on the horizon, shot through with violet lightning. The air went thick and charged. Liam hummed in warning. He found Colt already on the headland, cloak whipped around him, eyes narrowed against the wind. "Not natural," Liam said. "No." Colt's gaze tracked the distant storm line. "Word from our coastal watchers says Kolap Nexu users have been practicing large-scale weather manipulations. They claim it's to calm seas for trade, but this isn't calming anything," Liam said. The first raindrops hit, fat and cold. The storm rushed toward shore faster than any weather had a right to. Liam's skin prickled. He flared in sympathy with the distant lightning. Colt's hand closed on his arm. "Inside. Now." "But the horses." "Inside, Liam. They barely made it to the manor before the storm slammed into Turtle Bay." Wind howled, tearing roof tiles and snapping tree branches. Rain lashed sideways, slamming like thrown gravel. Lightning ripped the sky, webbing the air over the sea with blinding white. Liam braced at a high window, watching waves rear and crash against the cliffs. Somewhere in that chaos, ships were fighting for their lives. "This isn't a storm," Karis said from his shoulder, voice strained. "It's a warning." Liam's throat tightened. A servant stumbled into the chamber, face pale. "My lords, rider at the gate. Kolap colors. He says he'll speak only to the Lord Arbiter and his heir." Liam and Karis exchanged a glance. "Send him to the Great Hall," Liam said, "and fetch hot broth. He's ridden through hell to get here." When they reached the hall, the Kolap rider stood swaying on his feet, water pooling on the stone beneath him. His cloak dripped. His hand shook around the scroll tube he clutched. Colt descended the dais steps himself to take it. "Easy," he said. "You're safe at Turtle Bay." "Safe?" The rider laughed, a broken, rasping sound. "Nowhere on Flagler Coast is safe." He sagged into the arms of Dagda guards as Colt cracked the seal and unrolled the message. Liam watched his father's face as he read, saw the way the color drained, the way his jaw set. "What is it?" Liam demanded. Colt looked up slowly. His eyes were very cold. "Shane Kolap has broken the treaty," he said. 8 days ago, he led a force against Flag Harbor." Liam's heart stopped. "What?" "Flag Harbor is under siege," Colt said. "The Kolaps have come for the Pateroms." The storm outside roared agreement. And just like that, the scales Colt had tried so desperately to keep balance tipped into freefall. Liam could not remember later much of that first night after the news, only fragments. The storm howling around Turtle Bay, battering against stone and shutter. The Kolap rider's voice, ragged as torn sailcloth, describing ships like black knives cutting through Flag Harbor's moonlit water. The taste of iron at the back of Liam's tongue as he gripped the edge of the map table hard enough to make his knuckles whiten. "Flag Harbor's outer batteries fell by dawn," the rider rasped. Shane Kolap led from the front, his armor burning with Nexu light. It came through the sea gates first. Your Pateroms were caught with their vaults open and their blades sheathed. Liam's heart lurched. Niamh! The rider's eyes were sunken, pupils too large. He shook his head once. I only know what the sea told us, Dagda. He swallowed. But the Paterom banner came down by the second night. Their men thrown from the wall. Their heads on pikes. Colt's jaw clenched. Enough. He nodded to the guards. Get him dry clothes and a healer. He's burned his Nexu near dry. When the man had been led away, the hall felt too big. Liam looked at the map, at the white marker for Flag Harbor, now ringed with blue glass pieces. 2 days, he said. He moved faster than any of our estimates. Because he did not ask permission, Colt said bitterly. He didn't wait for parchment. He saw an opening in the treaty's armor and drove a sword through it. Then we ride now, Liam said. We take our men. Into what? Karis asked from the side, shaken out of his usual humor. A city painted Kolap green? You want to clash steel with Shane on streets already full of corpses? If that's what it takes, Liam said. And if Niamh is among those corpses? Colt's voice was quiet, merciless. What then, Liam? You will have broken our neutrality, risked the council's wrath for vengeance, not justice. Liam's flared so hot it hurt. This isn't only about Niamh. Don't lie to me, boy, Colt said, and for a heartbeat Liam saw not the arbiter but the father who had wrapped fire-scorched hands in bandages when Liam had his first training session. It may not only be about her, but she's the blade in your heart right now. I need my heir thinking with his head. My head tells me that if we let Shane keep that city, everything we pretend to stand for rots. Liam shot back. My head tells me that if the Dagdas sweep in now, the coastal houses will see open war as acceptable again, Colt replied. The Nexu Council will ask why we did not bring this to them first. They will ask whether the Arbiter's line has forgotten its task. Karis stepped between them before the air could ignite. What can we do now that doesn't end in 3 kingdoms burning? He asked. There has to be something between standing by and charging into a war. Colt's gaze flicked back to the map. He dragged a thumb along the coastline, tracing rivers and roads. When he looked up again, his eyes were bloodshot but clear. We send messengers to the council at once, he said, with proof that the treaty has been broken. At the same time, we send quiet riders to every minor house along Flagler Coast, warning them that if they move on their rivals under cover of Kolap's rebellion, Dagda will remember. We can still slow the spread of this. And Flag Harbor? Liam demanded. Flag Harbor, Colt hesitated. We wait for clearer reports. A city takes longer to swallow than a hamlet. There will be survivors, refugees. We will listen. Liam stared at him. You want me to just stand here while Shane Kolap parades my betrothed's home through the streets? Colt considered. No, he said at last. I want you to see. He reached into his desk, withdrew a slim crystal rod carved with runes along its length. Liam recognized it, a wizard's relay, used to amplify long-distance Nexu communications. Flag Harbor has seer mirrors in its council tower, Colt said. If any of them survive, we may get a glimpse of what's happening before we commit men to a doomed rescue. He placed the crystal on the map table and tapped a sigil along its side. A faint hum began, rising in pitch as it drew an ambient nexum from the room. Liam reached out instinctively. The crystal's glow brightened, then expanded, casting an image into the air above the table. For a moment, all they saw was smoke. Choking, gray-black smoke, roiling around splintered stone. Then the image steadied, resolving into a view from high above Flag Harbor, perhaps from a tower window or hovering Nexu drone. Liam's breath hitched. The white walls he knew so well were scorched and broken. The harbor's sea gates hung askew, one chain snapped, ships burned in their berths, their masked skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Streets that had once smelled of fish and spice and fresh bread were slick with rain and something darker. Kolap blue banners snapped from towers that once flew Paterom white. Figures moved in the smoke, Kolap soldiers in mismatched armor, dockworkers with makeshift weapons, Paterom loyalists dragged in chains. Nexu flared here and there, brief flashes of water, crackling arcs of electricity, a swirl of air that whipped embers into sudden flame. There, Karis said hoarsely, pointing. At the foot of the main keep, a row of spikes lined the courtyard wall. Heads adorned them. Liam's vision tunneled. He recognized Lord Paterom's sharp features even in death, his hair matted with blood. Beside him, two of Niamh's uncles, her younger cousin.
Niamh,
Liam whispered.
where is she?
The image wobbled as whoever held the seer mirror shifted position, peering down into the courtyard. A figure strode into view, armor catching the stormlight. Shane Kolap. His hair was cropped close, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his expression carved from stone. His breastplate gleamed with engraved waves, and around his shoulders a cloak snapped, Kolap green, but scorched at the edges. He burned bright enough that even through the projection, Liam could feel the heat of him. He raised one fist. The Nexu around him flared, answering. Men roared his name. Where is she? Liam shouted, as though Shane might answer him across half a realm. As if in answer, the image flickered, cutting away from the courtyard. Now it showed the harbor mouth. A slim merchant vessel slipped out between burning hulks, sails patched but catching what wind they could. Paterom white at the masthead. And at the stern rail, a figure stood, hair whipping around her head like a banner of copper. Niamh. Liam sagged with relief, almost dropping the crystal. She got out, Karis breathed. The saints and sages, she got out. Not alone, Colt said quietly. Liam squinted. Even in the smoke-warped image, he could see other figures on deck. Dagda blue cloaks, Paterom guards, a healer with hands raised, shrouded in gentle glow. Colt tapped the map where the river that served Flag Harbor wound inland. There's a back channel from the inner docks, he said. If they took it, they could be halfway to Turtle Bay by now, riding the flood tide. Then we meet them, Liam said. We ride out, escort them back. The image shuddered, snapped off. The crystal dimmed, spent. Liam stared at it like he could will it to relight. When it didn't, he turned to his father. Please, he said, let me go to her. Colt closed his eyes briefly, then nodded once. Take 10 riders, he said. No banners, no heavy armor. Your escort, not war party. If the Kolaps see you, they must believe you have come only for your betrothed, not to pry the city from their hands. Yet Liam didn't argue yet. He took the permission and ran with it. Within the hour, he and Karis were mounted and riding hard along the cliff road, rain whipping their faces, Nexu humming under their skin. 10 Dagda riders thundered behind them, cloaks snapping. Hold on, Niamh, he thought, leaning low over his horse's neck as the road curved inland toward the river. I'm coming. The storm raged around them, but somewhere ahead, between burning city and waiting coast, a ship carried the girl whose life had become the axis of his own. And the Mer coast wind carried more than whispers now. It carried war. They found the ship at dawn. The river widened into a marshy estuary before spilling into Turtle Bay. Fog clung low over the water, a pale veil that turned the world ghost-soft. Liam's horse snorted nervously as they picked their way along the muddy bank. There, Karis pointed. A hull leaned drunkenly against a sandbar. One mast snapped, the other sagging. Paterom white hung limp and stained. The tide lapped at the keel with little slaps, as if trying to coax the ship back to sea. Dagda riders dismounted, hands on sword hilts as they approached. Hello, the ship, Karis called. By Dagda right, state yourselves. No answer. Liam's stomach dropped. Nothing from the ship. No, not nothing, just stillness. He swallowed hard. Bored with care. The deck was slick with river water and something thicker, darker. Liam's boots left faint prints as he moved. Broken arrows lay scattered. A half-burned charm hung from the rail. A wizard's trinket cracked down the middle. Near the mainmast, they found the first body, a Paterom guard, throat cut, eyes staring at the brightening sky. Scavengers? Karis murmured. River raiders? Or Shane's men, Liam said quietly. He might not have wanted her slipping to Turtle Bay. They found 3 more Paterom men near the bow. 1 Dagda cloak, 2 sailors, all dead. No Niamh. Panic clawed at Liam's chest. Search the shore, he snapped. Every reed bed, every rock. If someone survived, they might have crawled off. They searched. They found more bodies tangled in roots where the river had pushed them. Crewmen, a young healer whose hands were still stained with dried heart chakra glow. But no sign of slim boots or copper hair. No Niamh. By full sunrise, Liam stood on the sandbar, breathing hard, hair plastered to his forehead with mist and sweat. Karis clambered up beside him, shaking his head. Either she made it off before the attack and someone else picked her up, he trailed off. Or she's with the river now, Liam finished. The words felt like stones on his tongue. He turned toward Turtle Bay. The manor's white towers were just visible over the hills, catching early light. Back home, he said. We report. We watch the currents. If her body washes up, the bay will bring her to us. Karras looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. He just squeezed Liam's shoulder once. They rode back under a sky already clearing. Storms never lasted long along this stretch of Flagler Coast. By the time they reached the Dagda gates, the clouds had shredded into tatters, leaving a deceptively bright morning. Colt met them in the courtyard. Report, he said. Liam gave it. Thunder, burning city, escaping ship, wreck on the sandbar, the bodies, the absence. At the word absence, something in Colt's face cracked. Only for a heartbeat, but Liam saw it. I'm sorry, Father, Liam said. Colt shook his head once. Don't apologize for the sea, he exhaled slowly. We will have watchers along the shore. If Niamh lives, she's resourceful enough to find land. If she does not, his jaw tightened. We will see her laid to rest according to Paterom rites. And in the meantime? Liam asked. Shane sits in her home and decorates the walls with Paterom heads. In the meantime, Shane has stepped beyond what the council will tolerate, Colt said. Our messengers will reach them within days. The Nexu council will convene. If they deem this a violation of the Treaty of Stalemate, they will authorize action. And if we wait on them, Flag Harbor becomes a Kolap city in truth, Liam said. He'll fill it with his own people, his own banners. The longer he holds it, the harder it will be to pry from his hands. You speak as though you mean to pry it yourself, Colt said. Liam met his gaze. If the council is slow, he said, someone has to start. Colt studied him for a long moment, then shook his head, a trace of bitter humor in the gesture. You have your mother's stubbornness, he said softly, and my temper. Gods help us all. He turned toward the hall. Come inside. There's something else you must know. The letter was waiting in Colt's study. It lay on the desk, seal broken, Paterom white wax smeared and cracked. Liam's heart tripped when he saw the inked script, Niamh's hand. He reached for it, but Colt's hand pressed lightly to his wrist. I read it first, his father said quietly. As Lord Arbiter, you will not thank me, but I will not apologize for that. Is she? Read, Colt said, and stepped back. Liam unfolded the parchment. My dearest Liam, if you're reading this, then I'm already dead. The words blurred. He almost dropped the page. He forced himself on. I write in the tower, while the walls still stand, while the harbor still sings. The Kolap's men are at the sea gates. Father thinks we can hold if they attack, but I have always been better at reading currents than walls. I saw this coming, Liam, not the exact shape, but the direction of the tide. My uncles hoarded, told themselves it was for the city's safety. They tightened the nets until fishermen's hands bled. I argued. I lost. I'm not blameless. I did not shout loudly enough. I stayed in the tower when I should have stood in the markets. For that, I am sorry. Liam's throat closed. We sent word to Turtle Bay when the first wagons went missing. I hoped your father would come. When he did not, I realized something. The Dagdas cannot save us from our own choices. Only we can. Shane thinks he can marry me to claim Flag Harbor. He sent a message before his ships entered the bay. Surrender. And he would make me Kolap. Bind our bloodlines. Share power. I laughed. Then I signed my name to the only contract that mattered. There was a second page. A betrothal binding, ink still dark, marked with Niamh's sigil, and a countermark Liam recognized as his father's. Colt spoke from the window. She had sent it weeks ago, asked that I countersign and hold it until your visit so you could seal the oath together. He shook his head. I hesitated. Too many politics, too much risk. I finally signed on the same day Shane's fleet sailed. Liam's vision's letter continued. By Paterom of Dagda law, I am already yours. My blood is your blood's concern. Shane won't like that. If he takes the city, he will look for me. He will try to use me as a token. I will not be used. So I am making my own choice. Do not come for me, Liam. Come for our people, for the dockworkers, for the children, for the sea. Flag Harbor is yours now, whether you want it or not. They were both wrong about me, you know. Father thought I was a good little harbor jewel. Shane thinks I'm a prize to be pinned to his cloak. You're the only one who ever looked at me and saw the tide. Be the storm. Love, Niamh Paterom, Dagda betrothed and stubborn fool. The last line broke him. Tears blurred the ink. He jerked his hand back before he burned the whole letter. Karis stepped forward, but Colt held up a hand. Liam stood there, breathing in ragged gasps, the world tilting under his feet. So she was never on that ship. Instead, she took her own life, he managed, rather than be a token. Colt's voice was quiet. Her body hasn't washed ashore, no witnesses. But the seer who smuggled this out said she made for the tower parapet when the inner gates fell. Liam saw it too easily, standing on stone, wind whipping her hair, harbor burning below, choosing the sky over a Kolap cage. Everything inside him clenched. This is my fault, he said. No. Colt's denial was sharp. This is Shane Kolap's war and your future in-laws' greed. Do not steal guilt that isn't yours. I should have gone sooner. I should have forced you to act. I should have known how the tides of 3 great houses and a Nexu council would break. Colt stepped closer. You're 20 years old, Liam. Do not put a house's fall on your shoulders while you're at it. Liam laughed, a harsh, broken sound. So, what do I put on them? Colt's gaze was steady. Responsibility, he said, for what comes next. He reached into a drawer and withdrew a dagger. It was not ornate. Plain hilted steel blade etched with faint runes that pulsed when Colt's fingers brushed them. Liam recognized the pattern, a bloodbind sigil, older than the Dark War. This was meant as a wedding gift, Colt said. Tradition in our line. I carry the bond. On my heir's wedding, we share the cut, and the weight passes. He held the dagger between them. There will be no wedding now, he said simply, but there will be an heir. If you accept, the council will need a Dagda who has seen what this kind of hunger does to a city. At the blade. The idea of taking on the line's full burden now with Niamh's ink still wet on his fingers felt impossible, but so did doing nothing. Once this is done, he said slowly, I'll act in our family's name. Colt nodded. That is the point. The capsule door sealed behind him with a hiss that made Liam Dagda's heartbeat stutter. He stood alone within the curved metal chamber, the walls gleaming like polished pearl. The air tasted faintly of salt, though he knew that was impossible. Or maybe not, considering what he was. He swallowed hard. On the other side of the small viewing window, the technicians lowered the catalyst into place, a crystal the size of his fist, its surface swirling like trapped ocean currents. Colors rolled beneath its smooth exterior, deep blues, storm-bright silvers, hints of bioluminescent green. A shard of the sea made solid. A shard of him, if the stories were true. Liam steadied his breath as the crystal locked into the chamber's receptacle. A low hum vibrated through the capsule floor, running up his legs, settling deep in his spine. Then, crack! The crystal split down its center, spilling brilliant white-blue light. Mist streamed from the fracture, silky, restless, alive. It hovered for a breath, suspended like it was listening. Then it fell toward him. Liam shuddered as the mist wrapped around his shoulders and throat, sliding down his arm, curling around his waist like a patient serpent. He gasped when it touched his skin. Cold, colder than deep ocean water, colder than anything human lungs were made to breathe. The mist tightened. Then it entered him, through his mouth, through his skin, through every breath he dragged in, raw and trembling. His spine arched violently as the mist surged into his core, filling the chakra points like something deep inside him, something old, answered. Heat exploded beneath his ribs, rippling outward through bone and muscle. His vision shattered into shards of blue and green and blinding white. He felt his heartbeat shift, then twist entirely, sinking to a rhythm he didn't recognize. No, a rhythm, he remembered. His legs buckled. His hands found the capsule wall, fingers digging into metal as the mist began reshaping him from within. His lungs spasmed, new channels opened behind them. His diaphragm stretched, thickened, preparing for a different kind of breathing. His spine lengthened, vertebrae clicking into new alignment. His hips twisted sharply, widening to anchor something stronger, something heavier. Pressure pulsed from his tailbone, sharp, insistent, growing. Liam choked on a cry as the feeling surged downward, his legs numbing, merging, reshaping into a single powerful limb. Scales rippled beneath his skin, forming in patterns that glinted like moonlight on waves. The mist gathered low around him now, swirling faster, carving the final shape. Then came the strike. a single ringing pulse through his crown chakra like a bell tolling underwater. The transformation finished. Liam sagged forward, bracing himself on trembling arms. He felt the last of the mist coil around his lower body, sinking into new scales, new muscle, new instinct. His legs were gone. In their place stretched a massive muscular tail, smooth, sleek, and unmistakably shark-like. The caudal fin twitched, then split with a soft crystalline sound, forming two sweeping blades edged with faint bioluminescence. Mersha. He was Mersha, like his father, like those of his family before him. His breath came easier, too easy. His chest expanded with a strength he didn't know he had. His eyes caught their reflection in the metal wall, glowing blue, pupils thin as if watching through seawater. His tail turned back to legs and feet. When the capsule unlocked, he rose slowly, the tail lifting behind him with fluid, terrifying grace. Liam Dagda was no longer human, no longer bound to the land alone. The ocean had claimed him. The bloodline had awakened. Colt Dagda waited for him in the adjoining chamber, expression unreadable, eyes a depth Liam suddenly understood all too well. Without a word, Colt drew a dagger, an old blade, etched in runes that pulsed faintly with earth and ocean magic. He turned the dagger and slit his own palm first, clean and deep, dark red weld. Colt held his hand over the desk. The blood sizzled faintly as it touched the runes, waking whatever old Nexu binding slept there. Then he extended the dagger. Liam did not hesitate. Steel bit his palm. Pain flashed, sharp and grounding. He pressed his cut to his father's. Nexu roared. It surged up through Liam's chakras, root, sacral, solar, heart, like a river bursting a dam. He felt Colt's power mingle with his own, ancient earth and quiet judgment braided with his fire and restless will. Images flickered in his mind, Dagdas of centuries past standing between warring houses, binding oaths, sealing treaties, Turtle Bay's cliffs weathering storm after storm. Hands like his pressed together in blood and purpose. The bond settled, heavy but steady. When they pulled their hands apart, the cut was already sealing, a thin silver scar in its wake. You are Dagda, Colt said quietly. Not just in name now, in blood and Nexu. Liam closed his fist. Whatever he had been before, a son, a betrothed, a would-be bridge between families, had burned away. In its place stood something harder. I'll reclaim Flag Harbor, he said. Not as a lover chasing a ghost. As Dagda, as Niamh's chosen storm. His head. Then go. Liam turned toward the window, where the Mercoast winds battered the glass. Shane Kolap had taken his betrothed and her city. Liam Dagda would take everything back. He did not ride with banners this time. That was the first difference. The second was the look in his men's eyes. They had all heard by then. About the letter, about the bond, about Niamh's probable death, and the bloodbind that made Liam not just heir, but Dagda in all but name. They followed him not as a lord's son, but as a leader marked by Nexu and grief. 30 riders set out from Turtle Bay in the pale light before dawn. No standards, only cloaks pinned tight and blades well oiled. Their armor was plain but sturdy, woven through with subtle Nexu threads, wizard-wrought enhancements that made the metal lighter, the joints easier. Karis rode at Liam's side, face set. We're outnumbered, he said. You know that. Yes. Liam's voice felt like it belonged to someone else, someone steadier than he felt inside. Shane took Flag Harbor with allies. He'll have left garrisons, mercenaries, men drunk on plunder. So why are we doing this again? Karis asked lightly, because he didn't know how to be anything but wry when staring down death. Liam's hand tightened on his reins. Because if we wait for the council to convene and argue, there won't be a city left to save. Fair, Karis said, just wanted to hear you say it out loud. They rode hard, taking the inland road that wound through scrub hills and low pine forests. Liam kept his Nexu banked but ready, letting his chakras hum at a low burn. When they camped, he sat up late, tracing routes in the dirt by firelight. We can't meet his men in open battle, he told Karis. They'll have the numbers, the walls, the Nexu defenses. Karis poked a stick at the fire. You want to sneak a whole city out from under him? Not the city, Liam said. The people. He thought of Niamh's letter. Come for our people. The words had lodged in his bones. We go in through the fisher's culverts, he said. the ones that run under the western wall. Smugglers used them long before Paterom or Kolap ruled. If any of the harbor folk are still free, they'll know the routes. And if they're all dead? Karis asked. Liam stared into the flames. Then we'll fill the tunnels with fire and ash and call the harbor cursed. Comforting, Karis By the time they reached the outskirts of Flag Harbor, the sky had turned the color of old bruises. Smoke stains still streaked the horizon where the city squatted against the sea, its white walls now mottled in gray. Liam reined in on a rise overlooking the outer fields. Once, what felt like centuries ago, he'd ridden this same road in finer clothes, a small retinue at his back, Niamh waiting on the mid-wall to greet him with a grin and a sarcastic curtsy. Now, burnt-out farmhouses dotted the fields. The Paterom estate vineyards lay trampled. A scarecrow hung by its neck from a bent pole, Kolap green sash tied mockingly around its straw chest. Liam's teeth ground together. We go on foot from here, he said. Horses will draw too much attention. They stabled the animals in the ruins of a barn, warded the place with simple Nexu trip lines, a tug on Liam's chakra if anyone approached. Then they set out in twos and threes, cloaks hooded, moving toward the city's western flank. Close up, the damage was worse. The outer slope of the wall was pitted with blast marks where abilities had detonated. One tower lay in a crumpled heap, its upper levels collapsed into the courtyard beyond. The sea wind smelled of ash and salt and something sour, unwashed bodies, rotting refuse. Here, Karis hissed, gesturing toward a tangle of brambles at the wall's base. Behind the thorny growth, a narrow stone arch yawned, half choked with debris. A trickle of foul water seeped out, stinking of fish guts and refuse. The smuggler's culvert, Liam said, stomach tightening with more than the smell. Gods, it's smaller than I remember. You were 12 the last time you crawled through, Karis said. Everything looked bigger then. They sent 2 scouts in first, lithe, sharp-eyed cousins with wind-aligned Nexu that let them sense shifts in air. When they returned, streaked with slime, they gave a short nod. Clear, one said. No wards, no patrols inside. Either Kolap doesn't know it's here, or he thinks the stench will keep everyone out. Then we go, Liam said. He went first. The tunnel was just tall enough that he didn't have to crouch fully, but he had to duck his head. Slime-coated stone brushed his shoulders. The water was shallow but icy, seeping into his boots. The air tasted of rot. He kept his fire banked as low as he could, sending just enough Nexu to his fingertips to warm them and give a faint glow. The others followed in a double line, their footsteps muffled. After a few minutes, the tunnel widened. A faint upward slope tugged at their calves. Then a sound reached them, distant, muffled, but unmistakable. Chains. Liam's heart lurched. He raised a hand, signaling stop. Everyone froze. The tunnel opened into a low cellar room lit by a single grate, high in one wall, where daylight filtered through. Iron bars cut the space into pens. Humans and fae huddled inside. Dockworkers, from the look of them, nets still clinging to some of their clothes, a few with the faint glow of Nexu clinging to their skin, dimmed nearly to nothing. All wore iron shackles woven with simple suppressor runes. A Kolap soldier sat on a crate near the only door, dozing, his chair tipped back against the wall. Rage surged up, hot and clean. Liam didn't bother to suppress it this time. He stepped fully into the room and let his solar chakra flare. Heat filled his hands, brightening in an instant from ember to blaze. A narrow jet of flame shot from his palm, crossing the space in a heartbeat, striking the chair's back legs. They exploded into splinters. The Kolap soldier hit the ground with a yelp, hand scrambling for his sword. Before he could touch hilt, Karis was on him, blade kissing his throat. Shout, and you die before you finish, Karis said pleasantly. The guard froze, breathing hard, eyes wide with terror. Keys? Liam asked. The man jerked his chin toward his belt. Dagda riders stripped him of weapons and keys, gagged him, and bound him with his own chains. Liam turned to the cells. Faces stared back, wary, hollow-eyed. Recognition sparked in some of them. Dagda? A woman whispered. Her hair was braided with broken shell charms. Her wrists were raw beneath shackles. Yes, Liam said. I'm Liam Dagda. We're here to get you out, an old dockhand croaked, squinting. You used to sneak down to the wharves and ask about leviathans. Liam's throat tightened. I've grown since, Baron. Baron barked a laugh that turned into a cough. Apparently so. They opened the cells, one by one. Shackles hit the floor with dull clangs. As the prisoners stepped free, Liam could see Nexu stirring in some of them. Faint embers, guttered by suppression and hunger, flickering back to life. We don't have enough weapons for everyone, Karis said grimly. We don't need everyone armed, Liam replied. We need everyone moving. He looked at the freed dockworkers. Listen, he said. Kolap may hold your walls, but he doesn't hold you unless you let him. We're going to move through the underways. Free as many as we can. When you hear the harbor bells ring 3 times in quick succession, that's our signal. Those with Nexu, with blades, with fists, hit his men where they're thinnest. Those without, get the children and elders to the old storm tunnels. You know the ones. Murmurs rippled. Why should we trust you? A younger man demanded. Dagda said no interference when we begged for help. Liam winced. The truth stung more because of its accuracy. Because I was wrong, he said simply. Because my father was wrong. Because Niamh Paterom asked me to come for you, not for her tower. And because if we fail, Shane Kolap will hang your heads beside your lords and call it justice. Silence. Then the shell-braided woman stepped forward. You heard him, she said. About time someone remembered the harbor folk existed. I'll fetch who I can in the net maker's knuckles. I'll find the fishers along the South Quay. They've hated Paterom for years. They'll hate Kolap more. You'll be cut down, the skeptical man muttered. Maybe, Baron said. Maybe not. But I'd rather die swinging than hauling nets for a Kolap dog. Liam felt something expand in his chest, painful but bright. This was what Niamh had seen in her people all along, he said. Quiet until we're not. They slipped into the city's veins, storm drains, forgotten storerooms, half-collapsed tunnels built when Flag Harbor was smaller. Everywhere they went, they found more prisoners, more dockworkers. A few Paterom retainers who hadn't made it to the tower. They freed them all. Word spread like fire on dry grass. By the time the first Kolap patrol realized that the slaves on the grain docks had slipped their chains and vanished into the alleys, Liam had 36 men and women trailing him through the underways, some armed, some not, all with Flag Harbor wasn't a corpse. Not yet. It was a city drawing breath. The first clash came at the old fish market. Liam had always loved the place. Rows of stalls jammed between warehouses, the air thick with shouts and the reek of fish and spice. Niamh had dragged him there on his second visit, insisting no one understood a city until they tasted its cheapest street food. Now the stalls stood empty or overturned. Kolap soldiers lounged against pillars, armor half unbuckled, laughing with mouths full of stolen fruit. 2 wagons loaded with crates, grain and salted meat, waited in the square, ready to be rolled toward the keep. Better hit them before they finish loading, Karis murmured from where they crouched behind a collapsed booth. Liam nodded. Archers first. Then we drive them against the wagons. He looked at the people behind him. Dagda riders, freed dockworkers clutching knives, a baker with a rolling pin, a wiry woman whose palms crackled faintly with under-ripened electric Nexu. Remember, he said, we're not here to die gloriously, we're here to take back our city. Hit fast, disappear if it turns, live to strike again. You heard the man, Baron muttered. We're rats in their granary. Rats, bite. Liam drew in a breath, letting Nexu fill his lungs, spine, root chakra, hands. Steady, grounding, heart widening, drawing courage not just from himself but from the people around him. Solar, flaring, heat pooling in his gut. He raised one hand. A thin plume of fire spiraled up, no bigger than a candle flame at first. He fed it, coaxing, shaping. It stretched into a lance of heat barely visible in the bright square. He flicked his fingers. The lance darted forward, striking one wagon's wheel. The dried wood exploded. Kolap soldiers shouted, stumbling back as the wagon lurched, tipping to one side. Crates tumbled, bursting open, grain spilling like sand. Dagda archers rose from their hiding places along the market's upper balcony. Arrows hissed down, some tipped with simple Nexu charges that flared upon impact. 2 soldiers went down with shafts in their shoulders. One took an arrow to the thigh and collapsed with a scream. Liam surged from cover, twin blades drawn. He moved like flame, channels wide open, Nexum pouring through muscles and joints. The world slowed, tiny details crystal clear. The splinter pattern of the broken wagon wheel. The way one soldier's eyes widened a heartbeat before he raised his sword. Liam slid under the man's guard, blades flashing. Steel met flesh. The soldier went down. Karras parried a heavy strike and kicked his opponent into a vat, sending pickling brine sloshing. Dockworkers swarmed over another, dragging him down in a tangle of limbs. A Kolap sergeant bellowed, rallying his men. To the wagons! Form up! This is nothing but rats! Liam flung his hand toward the spilled grain. Flame leapt. Not enough to ignite the whole market. He hadn't the chakra to spare for that yet, but enough to send a sheet of fire skimming across the ground. It licked at boots, forced Kolap soldiers to break formation. Rats with teeth, Liam said. He heard bells then. 3 quick peals, echoing from somewhere toward the harbor. The signal. All across Flag Harbor, people who had been watching and waiting, dockhands, bakers, carpenters, a handful of Paterom loyalists who hadn't been slaughtered, moved. Chains fell. Cell doors creaked open. In the alleys between the grain warehouses, a woman with water-aligned Nexu burst a barrel, sending a wave crashing into a squad of Kolap men. In the glassblower's quarter, an old elemental coaxed shards of broken glass into a whirling storm that shredded exposed skin. In the shadow of the seawall, a boy whose shadow chakra had barely awakened used it to tie a guard's feet into his own silhouette. Chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Back in the old fish market, someone shouted Liam's name. He looked up in time to see a Kolap captain bearing down on him, armor heavier, sword broader, aura flaring with Nexu-enhanced strength. The man's brow chakra pulsed. Electric. Yellow. Crackling. Lightning danced along his blade. Shane said you'd come. Well, Liam said, raising his blades. It would have been rude not to. The captain swung. Lightning traced the arc of his sword, turning the air white. Liam barely twisted aside, feeling the hair on his arm stand as the blow struck stone where his head had been, slashing for the gap under the man's arm. The captain turned the strike, sparks flying as steel kissed steel. You're quick, the Kolap grunted. Let's see how quick when your feet melt. His sacral chakra flared, water and lightning mixing. The stones under Liam's boots suddenly slicked with conjured ice. Liam's feet went out from under him. He caught himself with one hand, fingers sizzling as he threw a sheet of fire along the ground. The ice hissed, turning to steam in an instant. The captain swore, coughing. Liam surged up, using the vapor as cover. He closed the distance, slammed both his blades against the man's sword, driving it up. Their faces were inches apart. Tell Shane, Liam said softly, that this city doesn't want him. Fire flooded his arms, into his blades, along the contact point where steel met steel. It leapt into the captain's armor, racing along metal seams, seeking skin. The man screamed. He dropped his sword, clawing at buckles. Liam stepped back before the burning armor could touch him. The captain staggered, tripped over a spilled crate, and went down, arrow took him in the throat. Liam looked up to see Baron on the balcony, lowering his bow. Didn't think you'd mind, the old dockhand called. Not this time, Liam said. The fight in the market turned fast after that. Kolap soldiers, suddenly realizing that the rats had Nexu and leadership, broke. Some ran toward the keep. Others tried to push through the alleys, only to find more angry citizens waiting. Liam forced himself to hold back from the chase. Let them run, he called. Let them tell the others what's coming. We moved to the south quay. Karras, take half our people to the net mender's yard. Cut off the route to the keep. We're squeezing them, not scattering. Karras saluted with his sword and peeled off, a trail of fighters behind him. Liam paused, chest heaving, eyes stinging from smoke and sweat. For a heartbeat, he heard Niamh's voice in his head. You cannot rule a city from its walls, Liam. You rule it from its streets. He looked around at the faces watching him, Dagda riders, dockworkers, freed slaves, tired, scared, but alight with something fierce. Flag Harbor is yours, he said, projecting his voice as best he could. Not Kolap's, not even Dagda's. Yours. Fight like it. Not for banners, for the harbor. For your families. A murmur answered for your dead, rising to a shout. Someone began a chant, old harbor words, half curse, half blessing. It rolled through the crowd, gathering strength. Liam turned toward the inner city. By the time the sun reached its zenith, skirmishes flickered across Flag Harbor like wildfire. The Kolap garrison, trained for siege and intimidation, found itself dragged into a dozen small street fights instead, ambushed from upper windows, hit with kitchen knives and cobblers' hammers, tripped by invisible shadow ties. Shane was not there. Word filtered through the chaos, carried by terrified soldiers and ex-slaves. The Kolap heir returned to Maer 2 days after the city fell, leaving his generals to administer the new order. Bad choice. By nightfall, the keep's outer court lay in rebel hands. The Kolap banners burned in a heap, sending sparks into the dark. Liam stood in the great gate's archway, chest aching, arms heavy, watching the flames. A hand touched his shoulder. Karis. It's done, his cousin said softly. The last of the generals are dead or fled. We pulled down the heads on the wall, the people. They carried them to the sea, said the tide could decide what to do with them. Liam closed his eyes for a moment. The image of those spikes would never leave him, but at least now they were empty. We'll need guards, he said, not Paterom, not Kolap. Dagda, neutral, until the council decides what happens next. You think the council gets the last word now? You just led a city-wide rebellion. They'll be scrambling to catch. Up to you. Someone has to patch the statutes around this, Liam said wearily, or we'll be right back here in 10 years. He turned away from the burning banners, looking up at the keep. Niamh's tower window was dark. We'll leave a wing untouched, he said quietly. For her. For now. For now, Liam felt the new weight in his blood. The bonds singing, the city's eyes on him, even if half of them didn't know exactly who was leading what. He had done what he set out to do. Flag Harbor was free of Kolap, but Niamh was still gone, and Shane still breathed. The fire in his chest refused to cool. Tomorrow, he knew, there would be talks, petitions, families coming to him with their grief and demands. The Nexu Council's envoys would arrive eventually, robes full of regulation and rhetoric, eyes full of calculation. Tonight, though, there was only one thing he wanted. Once we've set the guards, he said, I'm riding north. Karis blinked. North? Liam, you've been awake for 2 days. You can barely stand. I can stand, Liam said. And I can ride to Mer. To Mer, Karis repeated. Where Shane Kolap holds court among his own walls, with his own people, and Nexu at his back. Yes, Liam said. Time to stop dancing around each other through cities and messages. Karis shook his head slowly, a crooked grin tugging at his mouth despite everything. You're going to challenge him. Under the old laws, Liam said, beyond the walls, where no house can claim it wasn't fair. Those duels are to the death. They don't have to be, Liam said. If one of us chooses otherwise, and if he doesn't, Liam looked back at the burning banners. He took Niamh's sky, he said. He doesn't get to keep his clean. The Mer Coast wind caught the flames, sending sparks swirling like fireflies. The storm inside him had not passed. It was just traveling to Mer as a Dagda challenger felt very different from traveling as a neutral arbiter's son. No quiet trade road this time, no polite stopping at wayhouses to exchange gossip and drink watered wine. Word had already spread of Flag Harbor's uprising. As Liam's small party rode north along the Mer Coast, villagers peered from doorways, eyes wide. Some made the sign of hoarding at their passing. Others nodded once, solemn, as if recognizing a funeral procession. Karis counted banners as they went. Kolap green there, saints. They've woven themselves into every harbor cutting off the head matters, Liam said. If Shane falls, the web loosens. You realize that might turn him into a martyr instead, Karis said. Yes, Liam said. We'll cross that bridge if his ghost starts giving speeches. Karis snorted. You're very calm about this. I'm not calm, Liam said. I'm focused. His chakras hummed, tuned to a tight, clear chord. Root grounding, heart aching but open, solar burning bright. Crown and brow whispered of risk, but he had never been particularly clairvoyant. His gifts were for action, not augury. On the second night, they made camp on a bluff overlooking the sea. Liam slept badly, dreams full of fire and falling. He woke before dawn, heart hammering, palms already warm with Nexu. He sat on the cliff edge, watching the pale line between sea and sky. Can't sleep either? Karis dropped down beside him, tossing a pebble into the waves below. I keep imagining 100 ways this could go wrong. Only 100? Liam asked. I'm an optimist. They sat in silence for a time. Does it feel wrong, Karis said finally, to be doing this for Niamh when she told you not to come for her? Liam considered. I'm not coming for her, he said quietly. Not exactly. I'm coming for what she asked me to protect. The people, the coast, the harbor, the idea that a lord can't just light a match and call it justice. And if you die? If I die, then at least the council will have to look at why, Liam said. Shane won't be able to spin this as some minor border skirmish. If he kills a Dagda in fair challenge, it'll echo. Fair, Karis said again. We're leaning hard on that word. They broke camp as the sun rose. Mer Coast appeared near midday, its walls rising from the sea cliffs, dark stone slick with spray. The gates were flanked by carved mer creatures, half fish, half serpent, their eyes set with dull blue crystals. Kolap banners flew from the towers. The smell of fish, salt, and smoke rolled down the hill. Liam reined in on the road just shy of the gate's shadow. Remember, he said, we don't enter. Karis eyed the walls, because they'd slam the gate behind us and turn us into decorative spikes. Exactly, Liam said. He nudged his horse forward alone until he stood in the nearest watchman's line of sight. I am Liam Dagda of Turtle Bay, he called, voice carrying on the sea wind. Heir and bloodbound arbiter of Flagler Coast. I request parley with Shane Kolap under the laws of the Nexu Council. The guards on the wall stirred. A horn blew, short and surprised. Nothing happened for a long few heartbeats. Then a figure leaned on the parapet high above, wind snapping at his cloak. Dagda! A voice called down, familiar even at this distance. You picked a poor time for sightseeing. Mer's markets aren't what they were. Liam shaded his eyes. Shane Kolap looked much as he had in the seer projection, broad-shouldered, hair cropped close, face lined more with strain now than with arrogance. His aura shimmered faintly, a mix of solar and brow chakra fire and control. I didn't come for your markets, Liam called back. I came for you. Flattering, Shane said dryly. I heard you took Flag Harbor from my generals. Efficient work. You planning to add murder to your collection? Treaty from becoming scrap, Liam replied. But we can debate parchment all week. I doubt either of us has patience for that. True, Shane said. Say your piece, Dagda. I challenge you, Liam said. His voice rang off stone. Under the old law of single combat, you as instigator of the Flag Harbor assault, me as bloodbound arbiter and rightful protector of Flagler Coast, beyond the walls between sea and stone, at a place where no house can claim advantage. A hiss ran along the wall. Guards muttered. Somewhere, a seagull shrieked, oddly shrill in the sudden relative quiet. Shane's expression didn't change much, but his aura flared, he said. Yes, Liam felt very clear suddenly. You and I both spilled blood as proxies, through soldiers, through dockworkers, through hired blades. It ends with us, not with more heads on walls. Old laws are old for a reason, Shane said. The council doesn't exactly encourage them anymore. The council isn't here, Liam said. We are. And unless they've rewritten the codex on the walkover, the right of challenge still stands, as long as both parties agree and the terms are witnessed. More muttering. Liam saw figures moving along the wall, scribes and minor officials, by the scrolls and inkwells. Why should I accept? Shane asked. You've already cost me a city. What do I gain by giving you a fair
cleaner
shot
ledger?
at my throat? Liam said. If you win, the Dagdas are leaderless. Turtle Bay weakened. The council will have to negotiate with you whether they like it or not. If I win, he let the implication hang. You think I won't have my men put arrows in your back half a heartbeat into the fight? Shane asked. I think you care too much about your own honor to stain it that way, Liam said. You genuinely believe you're Mer's steward, that you acted for your people. This, he gestured between them, is how stewards settle debts without drowning everyone else. For the first time, something like surprise flickered across Shane's face. You've been listening, he said. To you? Only when I have to, Liam replied. To the way the coast talks about you? Yes. A beat of silence. And Shane laughed. a short, sharp bark. You're either a fool or exactly the kind of man the council always hoped the Dagdas would raise. He looked west, to where the cliffs dropped into foaming surf. Very well. Under the Codex, a formal challenge allows 2 days' grace for preparations. I'm not going anywhere, Liam said. Name the place. There's a stretch of ground a league west, Shane said. Bare rock, no cover, no old wards. You'll know it by the Mer statue fallen on its side. Midday, second day from now. Agree. Bring witnesses, I'll do the same. Shane inclined his head slightly, then straightened. Guards, note the terms, he called. Challenge issued and accepted under the Nexu Council's dueling law. Witnesses present. Karis groaned softly behind Liam. Well, he muttered, now it's all very official. Wouldn't want them forgetting the paperwork, and Liam rode back down the road. 2 days. 48 hours for the coastal wind to gnaw at his resolve, for phantom visions of his own death to creep into his mind. He'd take them. He'd take every shred of fear and feed it to his fire. Because in 2 days, on bare rock between sea and sky, everything that had built to this would finally ignite. The dueling ground looked like the gods had carved a stage for storms. Bare rock, sloping gently toward the sea, scarred with old tide lines. A toppled statue of some long-forgotten mer deity lay on its side near the center, face worn smooth by centuries of spray. The cliffs to either side cupped the space like a shallow amphitheater. Witnesses gathered along the edges, mer officials in Kolap green, a handful of minor house envoys who rushed to be present, Dagda riders in blue. No banners flew, by law. Nexu flared like faint lanterns up and down the crowd, heart and brow, solar and root, some masked more skillfully than others. Karis stood at Liam's left, cloak flapping. Last chance to decide. This is the worst idea you've ever had. You made me say it out loud. That's binding. Karis snorted. They had spent the past 2 days drilling, meditating, carving Nexu sigils into the inside of Liam's bracers. Colt had sent a courier with a scroll full of dueling advice that boiled down to, don't get killed. Liam had read it anyway. He felt strangely calm now. His root chakra hummed like a plucked string, anchoring him to the stone. His heart ached, Niamh's absence a hollow space, but around that ache was something fierce and solid. His solar burned bright, not wild, his enhancement nexus tuned to sharpen reflexes, not inflamed temper. Shane arrived just as the sun tipped past its zenith. He wore no helmet, no ornate armor, just a breastplate, bracers, greaves, functional, Kolap forged, etched with waves. A massive two-handed sword rode his back, hilt rising over his shoulder. His aura crackled, strong solar, sharp brow, hints of water in sacral and air in throat. A well-rounded fighter, the type you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley, the center of the clearing, without and nodded once. Dagda, Kolap, Liam said. A council scribe stepped forward from the edge, clutching a codex of Nexu law to his chest like a shield. Challenge between Liam Dagda of Turtle Bay and Shane Kolap of Mer Coast. Under Article 7 of the Dueling Statutes, he intoned, voice trembling. Terms, first blood rendered incapacitating, voluntary yield, or death. No external interference. Nexu use permitted within personal capacity. Wards to be erected to protect witnesses from stray manifestations. He swallowed, glanced at both men, then raised his hands. Simple barrier wards sprang up along the perimeter, translucent domes anchored to sigils carved into the rock. Insurance, in case either duelist lost control of their Nexu. Begin at my mark, the scribe said. Remember the law. Remember the eyes upon you. He stepped back fast. Liam drew his twin blades. They felt right in his hands, good weight, good balance, etched with runes that hummed as they touched his palms. He rolled his shoulders, grounding his stance. Across the rock, Shane reached back and pulled his sword free. The blade was as long as Liam was tall, its edge clean, its surface etched with faint wave patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Shane rested it on one shoulder like it weighed nothing. Yes, Liam said. The scribe's hand chopped down. Nexu exploded. He closed half the distance in a heartbeat, sword whistling through the air in a downward cut that would have shaved Liam's head off if he'd been a fraction slower. Liam slid aside, feeling the wind of the strike. he countered, slashing for Shane's ribs with a quick double cut. Steel rang as Shane twisted, sword intercepting both blades in a shower of sparks. The impact jarred Liam's arms, but he let the momentum roll through him, pivoting to rake one blade low toward Shane's knee. Nexu flared along Shane's leg armor, deflecting the blade just enough that it glanced off instead of biting. Clever, Liam panted. I've had practice, Shane grunted. They circled. The sea crashed, loud and steady. Gulls wheeled overhead, screaming. Liam sent a trial burst of flame from his palm, quick and narrow. Shane swept his sword through it, scattering the fire. Droplets of flaming Nexum spattered the stone. Liam snuffed them with a flick of will. Your file says fire and enhancement, Shane said, as if they were discussing court gossip rather than trying to kill each other. Strong solar, strong heart. Makes sense now that I've seen you in a city fight. You have a file on me, Liam said. Of course, anyone who might make my life difficult gets ink. You're a recent addition. Glad to be noticed, Liam replied, and lunged. He pushed a burst of enhancement through his legs, sending himself forward faster than most eyes could track. Shane's sword came up to meet him, but Liam twisted mid-stride, sliding under the larger blade. He came up inside Shane's guard, one sword angling for the man's side, the other for his shoulder. Shane flared his solar chakra. Heat slammed into Liam like a wall. His own fire recoiled, shocked by the sudden surge. He staggered, blade skidding off armor, now hot enough to sear his palms through leather. He jerked back, hissing, flexing his fingers. Blisters rose, small but angry. Apologies, Shane said, not sounding sorry. Forgot you're more used to setting the temperature yourself. Liam gritted his teeth. You boast a lot for someone who lost Flag Harbor. Shane's jaw tightened. I left generals. I didn't expect a grieving lover with guerrilla tactics. Liam's chest spasmed at lover. He turned the pain into motion, slashing low. Shane leapt back, using a burst of wind Nexu to carry himself farther than a normal jump should. They traded blows. Sword against swords, fire against fire, water and air weaving in. Shane's style was heavy, oppressive, designed to pin and crush. Liam's was quicker, slicing in, sweat darting away, eyes, looking for openings. His lungs burned. His Nexu reserves dipped, then flared as he dragged more mana from the sea and sky. At one point, Shane's blade grazed Liam's shoulder, cutting through leather into flesh. Pain flared, hot and sharp, first blood but not incapacitating. The scribe called it as such, voice shaking. Close, Shane said. Not close enough, Liam replied. He knew he couldn't match Shane blow for blow forever. The man was older, more experienced, practiced at longer fights. He needed to change the shape of this. The next time their blades locked, Liam held them there, faces inches apart. You know, he panted. For someone who claims to fight for the people, you spend a lot of time putting their heads on walls. Shane's eyes flashed. You haven't seen what Paterom greed did in Myr. Families starved while their ships sailed fat. I sent petitions. I sent envoys. Your father sent me parchment and patience. And so you burn another city, Liam said. I freed them from the dockworkers' children do Shane to you, snarled. And then chain them to your wagons, Liam shot back. Call it what you like. Chains don't care whose crest is on the lock. Shane pushed, breaking the lock, forcing Liam back. Do not speak to me of chains, he rasped. Your house sat in its ivory tower and watched while Myr's debtors hung themselves in fishing nets. Do you think I don't know my father failed you? Liam said. You think I don't wake up every day with his no interference stuck in my teeth? His voice rose. The difference between us, Shane, is what we did next. You burned my general, Shane said. I burned your lie, Liam answered. That blood was inevitable. He feinted left, then snapped his wrist, sending a ribbon of flame snapping toward Shane's unguarded flank. It wasn't. You chose it. Shane whipped his sword around, catching the fire along the flat. His brow chakra flared, dancing along the blade. The fire twisted, turned, flared back toward Liam in a crackling arc. He threw himself aside. The redirected fire kissed his ribs, enough to scorch but not pierce. Manipulation nexus flared, he managed. Nice. You're not the only one who reads codices, Shane said. They were both tiring. Liam could feel his chakra reserves dropping. that hollow ache that warned of Nexu burnout. Shane's aura flickered too, his blows fractionally less precise. Liam thought of Niamh, standing on her tower, choosing her own ending rather than let Shane write it for her. He thought of Mer's dockworkers, of Flag Harbor's nets, of his father's lined face. He thought of the blood-bind scar in his palm, still faintly silver. Enough. He let his next parry slip. Shane's blade knocked one of his swords wide, sending it skidding across the rock. The crowd gasped. Shane stepped in,
cursed under
sword
his
raised
breath.
for a finishing stroke. Liam dropped his remaining blade. Unarmed now, he thrust both hands forward. He didn't summon a jet or a spear or a sheet of flame. He summoned heat. Every scrap of solar chakra he had left, the rock poured into the stone under their feet. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the air between them shimmered. Heat waves rose, distorting everything. Shane's face, the crowd, the sky. The temperature spiked, turning breath into knives. The dueling ground became an oven. Shane staggered, armor suddenly an anchor dragging him down. His sword wavered. Liam felt his own vision blur. Sweat poured down his spine. His skin screamed, but he'd trained for this. When his Nexu had first flared as a teenager, Colt had made him stand barefoot on sun-baked rock until he learned to separate his sense of self from the heat, to feel it but not be consumed by it. Be the flame, he called on that memory now. He stepped forward into the shimmering haze. Shane swung, sluggish, blade carving an arc through sluggish air. Liam ducked under it. He slammed his shoulder into Shane's chest. The impact jarred him to the bone. Shane grunted, staggered. His footing slipped on the superheated stone. For a terrifying second, they wobbled together. Then Shane's boots balanced on the edge of a fall. He went down hard, sword clanging from his hand. Liam followed, driving his burned, empty hands down. He landed knees on either side of Shane's chest, one forearm pressed across the man's throat. His other hand he raised, fingers stiff. Fire lit at his fingertips, a tiny, deadly flame. He held it over Shane's eye. The whole world narrowed to that point of light. The crowd noise faded. The sea roared dimly in the background. Somewhere, Karis was yelling his name. He ignored all of it. Yield, he said. Shane's chest heaved under him, muscles straining. You kill me, he rasped, voice raw. And Mer will paint you as butcher and invader. They'll rally behind my brothers. I know. Behind anyone who promises to avenge me to yield. Shane's brow chakra flickered. You think I can go back inside those walls after this? Shane asked, breath ragged. Tell my people I lost their city in their duel? You can go back and tell them you chose not to drag them into a council crusade, Liam said. That you looked over the edge and decided not to push the whole coast off it. Shane's hand trembled. The flame in Liam's palm dipped, close enough that Shane flinched. You stole Niamh's sky, Liam said quietly. But this isn't about my grief anymore. This is about whether any child on Flagler Coast grows up believing the only way to be heard is to burn a harbor. For a heartbeat, Shane just stared up at him. Each shimmered between them. Then, slowly, his muscles loosened. I yield. His hands opened, palms up. The scribe's voice cracked as he shouted, amplified by a throat chakra charm. Yield accepted. Duel concluded. By codex law, the victor's terms stand. Relief nearly buckled Liam. He let the fire drain from the stone, drawing it back into himself, until the dueling ground cooled, and the roar of the crowd surged in again. He pushed himself off Shane, staggering upright. Karis was immediately there, slipping a steady arm beneath Liam's elbow. You absolute idiot, she whispered, eyes bright. You did it. Still might die, Liam muttered. Not before you make this worth it. He turned back to where Shane sat up slowly, pale beneath his sun-dark skin. Your sword, Liam said hoarsely. Shane blinked. I'm offering it back. You're taking it? Liam nodded to Karis, who fetched the massive blade and handed it over. He planted it point down between them. On conditions. He laid out the terms. Leave Flag Harbor, renounce all claim, free every slave and prisoner, dismantle the walls, rule Mer as a steward, rather than a tyrant. Murmurs crackled like sparks along the cliffs, outrage and disbelief mingling in equal measure. Liam, you're letting him live? Finishing. Someone hissed. You get one chance. Prove you can hold power without burning every rival city you see. Shane's jaw flexed. And if I fail, then we're back here, Liam said simply. Or the council sends someone less inclined to offer terms. Silence fell. Finally, Shane laughed, bitter, tired. Something real at the edges. You hold my life and my house in your scorched hands, and you offer me mercy and paperwork. You are Dagda. He dragged himself to his feet, raising his voice. Shane Kolap of Mer accepts the terms. Flag Harbor is free of my claim. Mer frees its slaves. Debt prison walls come down. May the council choke on the precedent? Witness, the scribe squeaked. By those present, by the codex, by the sea. Liam exhaled, the kind of breath that trembled its way out of cracked ribs. His chakras were hollow drums, his palms raw. But he was standing. He lifted Shane's sword, offering it back. Shane reached, his fingers brushed Liam's, and for a heartbeat, Liam felt the man's Nexu. Sharp, salty, familiar in its hunger. They'll call you weak, Shane murmured. Low enough only Liam heard. For leaving me breathing, for not finishing it. They already call me weak for not acting sooner, Liam whispered back. Consistency is a virtue. Shane's lips twitched. You've made an enemy into something else today, Dagda, he said. I don't know what yet, but it isn't over. It never is. Liam stepped back. Shane moved. Not a flinch, not hesitation. A clean, practiced draw of hidden steel from the back of his belt. Fast, silent, meant for Liam's ribs. Karis shouted, the crowd gasped, but Liam was already moving. The solar chakra in his core flared, instinct ripping through exhaustion. He caught Shane's wrist with one hand and drove the pommel of the massive Kolap sword up beneath Shane's sternum with the other in a wet gasp. Liam didn't hesitate, couldn't. He turned the blade, letting fire bloom along its edge, and drove it straight through Shane's heart. Shane's eyes went wide, then distant, then empty. His body slid off the sword and hit the stone with a heavy, final thud. The scribe made a silent noise, swallowed the cliffs, attempted treachery, witnessed, kill, justified by codex. Liam stood over the fallen heir of Mer, chest heaving, fire guttering through his veins like dying coals. Liam. He chose, Liam said. The words scraped raw. He yielded, then chose. Around them, the witnesses didn't cheer. They didn't know whether to fear him or thank him. Liam looked down at Shane Kolap, tyrant, rival, almost steward, now, and let out a breath that tasted voice like ash. Low, steady, unshaking. Comes the harder part. The days that followed felt less like victory and more like rebuilding after a storm. Word of the duel swept Flagler Coast like a gale. In Turtle Bay's taverns, sailors reenacted the moment Shane Kolap lunged after yielding, and the flash of fire when Liam ended him. In Mer's markets, some mourned the death of their lord, others whispered that treachery had simply met its rightful end. In smaller villages, parents told their children that maybe, just maybe, men with fire in their hands didn't strike first, but they would finish a fight if someone tried to stab them in the back. The Nexu Council sent envoys with robes full of disapproval and questions. You should have brought this to us, one said in Turtle Bay's hall, voice sharp as a drawn quill. Would have taken council-sanctioned intervention. Replied. He sat in the arbiter's chair now, Colt's sigil ring heavy on his finger. Flag Harbor would have been ash and bones by then. You've set a dangerous precedent, another envoy sniffed. Arbiters taking justice into their own hands, killing a lord during a duel. I followed the codex, Liam said, perhaps more curtly than was wise. Article 7 is still law. Treachery voids yield. If you don't like that, change. Until then, I'll use every tool at my disposal to keep this coast from tearing itself apart. Colt, standing behind him, hid a smile in his beard. In Mer, the absence of Shane Kolap cracked open a vacuum his brothers scrambled to fill. The eldest Corban took temporary command, reluctant, stiff backed, and clearly aware the council was watching. Slowly, grudgingly, he announced reforms in his brother's name to appease the coast. Debt prisons were dismantled piece by piece. Chains came off dockworkers' wrists. Kolap soldiers were ordered, loudly, not to collect children for unpaid fines. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. But the tide had shifted a fraction. In Flag Harbor, Dagda guards patrolled the walls alongside newly selected local watchmen. The Paterom estates remained in limbo, held in trust until the council could decide what to do with lands belonging to a family whose last true heir had chosen the sky. He walked the old fish visited the harbor thrumming again with life. He watched Baron haggle over nets with his usual stubbornness. He listened as the shell-braided woman, Danya, he now knew, argued with a council envoy about grain prices like she was battling a sea storm. He stood at the keep's gate where the spikes had once been. There was a small shrine there now, a simple carved stone etched with names: Paterom, dockworker, child, all together, refusing to be sorted by birth. Liam dropped to one knee, tracing Niamh's name. "You were right," he murmured, "about the tide, about everything." A breeze stirred off the harbor, and for a heartbeat he almost heard her laugh, bright and exasperated. Took you long enough, Dagda." Later, high on the cliffs of Turtle Bay, Liam met with Corb and Kolap. Not in secret, each brought small entourages, just enough to reassure minor houses that the meeting was not conspiracy. Away from scribes and council ears, they walked several paces apart, watching waves break against stone. "You've kept things stable," Liam said. Horvin exhaled. "My brother's death forced my hand. Whatever pride Shane carried, it didn't die with him. It landed on my desk the next morning." "You could have doubled down," Liam said, "tried to avenge him." Corbin shook his head. "Shane's last act was treachery. Even Mayor doesn't stomach that. And I'm not blind. I saw what he nearly brought down on us." They walked in silence for a time. "Do you regret it?" Corbin asked finally. "Killing him?" Liam thought carefully. "There are days," he said, voice low, "when I wake and think of Niamh on that tower and wish I'd burned him long before the duel. Days when I feel the weight of every name carved into that shrine." "And other days?" Corvan asked. "Other days," Liam said, "I walk Flag Harbor streets and see children playing without fear. On those days, no, I don't regret stopping him." Honest, Corvan nodded once, annoying, jaw but tight. Honest. Shane would have hated that. Liam arched a brow. "And you? Regret stepping into his shadow." Corbin huffed something like a laugh. "Every morning. But Mur is still standing. People can spit at my boots if they like. At least they can do it freely now." "That," Liam said, "might be the wisest thing a Kolap has said to me." Corbin smirked faintly. "You know this isn't over," he said. "Another house will try what Shane did. Different colors, same hunger. You can't duel them all." "No," Liam agreed. "But I can make damn sure they think twice. And for the ones who don't," he flexed his scarred hands, "we'll deal with them with parchment first. Fire only if necessary." The sea wind shifted. The Mer Coast carried the cries of gulls, the smell of salt and kelp, and something softer beneath, almost imagined. A scream turned into a song. A warning turned into a prayer. Liam closed his eyes. He felt his chakras realign into something steadier. Root, anchored now to Turtle Bay, Flag Harbor's rebuilt stones, even Mur's uneasy shores. Heart, heavier with grief, steadier with hope. Solar, no longer a blade unsheathed at the slightest spark, but a lantern ready for use. His Nexu felt different, less like a weapon waiting for an excuse, more like a fire waiting for purpose. "Flagler Coast will remember this year," Corbin said quietly, "for good or ill." "They'll remember Niamh," Liam replied. "That's enough." Corbin inclined his head and returned to his horses. Karis drifted to Liam's side as the Kolap retinue rode off. "Think he'll keep walking the line?" she asked. "For a while," Liam said. "People like him change the way shorelines do, slowly, with storms in between. But he knows now what it looks like when someone is willing to burn." Karis nudged him. "And you, Lord Dagda? What happens when the next storm rolls in?" "The same thing as this time," Liam said. "Weigh, watch. And when the scales tip too far, act." He thought again of Niamh's last letter. "Be the storm." Maybe. A small smile touched doing it with a bit more speed. Karis barked a laugh. "Council's going to hate that." "They'll adapt," Liam said. He turned back toward Turtle Bay. The salty breeze off the Mer Coast still carried whispers of unrest, old grudges sharp as the cliffs. But now it carried other things too. Stories of a Dagda who stepped down from neutrality when neutrality became complicity. Stories of a Kolap who died breaking the code he pretended to honor. Stories of a harbor girl who chose her ending and, in doing so, lit the fuse for change. Liam Dagda walked toward Turtle Bay's white stones, toward ledgers, petitions, and the slow, grinding work of peace. His hands were scarred. The war for Flag Harbor was over, but his fire was steady. The work of Flagler Coast had only just begun. You enjoyed this deep dive into the magical biology of the Grinnmere. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Until then, stay curious, and may your mana flow strong.